Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Not that you had any choice. It's good to see you all, and we are tackling this new series Siobhan started last week called Like Jesus. And today we're looking at the whole thing of lead like Jesus. So no pressure then, guys. Lead like Jesus. And before we get into that, I want to ask you a personal question. Not very personal, just a personal one, just to you. Like, what would this church look like if you led it? I mean, do you think Ben, who was just up a moment ago, the leader of this church community, do you think you'd give him a run for his money? He obviously does. And I just wonder how you would lead it if you were in charge. And I just heard somebody in your mind's eye say over there, if I led this church on a Sunday morning, we would have a 3-hour worship set. Who said that? Or someone over here said, do you know what, if I led this church, you know those feast things that we have every so often where we all eat together? Well, we just do that every week. Oh. How would you lead this church if you were the leader? Some of you say, particularly parents, you say, you know, if I led this church, then I would allow the parents to register their kids in kids' church for the whole day. Ah. I know that's what you do. Or some of you may be saying, well, do you know what? If I led this church, on a Sunday morning, we'd have a proper Bible study. I don't know. What would you do if you had the opportunity to lead this church? But the bigger question is, this morning, I think, is how would Jesus lead it? How would he lead it? You know, we're called as leader, we're called the under shepherds. He is the captain of the ship, right? But if he was kind of leading and he allows us to call the shots on some of this stuff. If he was calling the shots, how would he lead it? And the thought crossed me, you know, that I'm not convinced that if Jesus was leading the church, that he would prioritize the things that we prioritize as the church, as the wider church. I belong to this church all my life. This one and only church has been my home since I was a baby. You know, I had the pleasure of being brought up as a pastor's kid. Any pastor's kids in the house, give me a wave. I feel your pain right now. And so I was brought to this church community and have been all my life and grew up in the activities in this same church. I led this church community, had the honor and privilege of leading it for 25 years. Doesn't sound a long time if you say it fast. And you know what I would say, particularly for the people who remember me leading this church, I would have to say that essentially the people were good people. And all the people that were here then say, essentially, we had a good bunch of people and a good program. And I think people, if you asked people, they would say we built quite a successful church. And then one day, this is many years ago now, one day I woke up totally dissatisfied with what we had created, which sounds a bit crazy, but there you go. And I had this major question, is this it? We've done all the things that you would expect as church, and I asked the fundamental question, is this it then? Is this level of success, is this what you want? Jesus, if you led this church, is this what you would want it to look like? The realization came to me very, very strongly. I woke up to the fact that there had to be something more than the Sunday morning. There had to be more than just our events, that we were more than just the sum total of the times that we would come and we would gather together. And I think a bit of revelation came to me all those years ago. I think God was speaking into my heart and challenging my own heart and beliefs on some things. And I woke up to the fact that I believed we had some major missing ingredients and maybe some misconceptions about the church. And I want to share just a couple of those with you this morning. Is that okay? So it's kind of confession time and to say, you know, this is where I was at. And then we changed some things. And I want to bring that for the sake of everybody. So many new faces, so many people who are part of this church community. So I want to share what I learned very, very quickly, and maybe how Jesus would lead this church. The first one is this. First misunderstanding I had for many years, and I believe so many churches around the world have, is this, that this stage, everyone say this stage. That was about half of you. Everyone say this stage. Thank you. Humor me. This stage constitutes the ministry of the church. That I had a misunderstanding, and I believe churches have a misunderstanding, that this stage constitutes the ministry of the church. A fundamental misunderstanding. It's what we call didactic church. And it kind of happens all around the world, where whoever stands behind here speaks, and all you guys listen. Huh? So it's speak, listen. And what that actually creates, very often, to an extreme if it's done, is a dependency culture on the person who's speaking, when Jesus has called you to be a disciple of Jesus. And so the whole thing of didactic church is we speak, you listen. And what that creates is some of you will be sat there thinking, even if not consciously, unconsciously, consciously, saying, Pastor, show me how to live. Tell me what I can do. Tell me what I can't do. Preach to me. Show me what my life should look like. Can you do that for me? And when I woke up to this whole idea that ministry is bigger than this platform, we changed the way, the language that we would use, and we would stop basically asking you to say, tell us how to live. We would say to you, as the disciple of Jesus Christ, we would say, what is God saying to you? Imagine that. That God could speak to you, that he doesn't have to speak through me or anybody else necessarily, and thank God for people who do speak from here, by the way, but that God could speak to you, and if you're listening, what are you going to do about it? I think that's fair, right? What is God saying to you, and what will you do about it? You know, as I read the Bible, I see that the New Testament church was built on disciples who devoted themselves. Acts 2:42, you'll see it come up on the screen as I continue to speak this morning, that they devoted themselves. This isn't about us trying to flog you to live like you should live. This is about you living before Jesus every day of your life. Devoting yourself. I believe the wider church needs to wake up to the real source of ministry. I tell you that the sum total and the sum source of ministry is not from this stage. It's from this stage. Some of you would call this the big stage. You know, if you make it to the big stage, what I've said for a long time, and some of you have heard me say this before, you're on the big stage. It's gone very quiet in here. You're thinking about what I'm saying. I love it. So you might think this is the big stage. Let me tell you, if you believe that, that's the bigger stage. You were all sat on the bigger stage. I'm going to come down to show you. I'm coming off the little stage, and I'm coming onto the big stage. And this should tell you something, that ministry isn't just about happening on this platform and from that pulpit, but from these people. That every single one of you are a minister of Jesus Christ. And understand, that is biblical. That's not just some trendy idea that someone made up in their head, but that's Bible. That you are the minister. So when you think about the stage and thinking about the big stage, I don't want you to think about this stage anymore. I want you to think about that stage. And let me just take this a little bit further. I'm not just speaking about you being ministers when we're all sat together on a Sunday morning. I'm talking about you being minister 24/7 when you're out there. Let's not make this about the things that we do and the tasks and the ministries that we're involved in on a Sunday morning alone. That's only part of it. The bigger ministry you have is out there, not in here. Now, before you stone me to death, let me just move on. Your ministry is meant for the marketplace, not just for church ministries. And I understand that together we are to encourage one another and we are to be involved and serve one another. But if let me tell you something, never let anybody narrow your ministry life to something that you're involved in on a Sunday. It's far more about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and including Sunday. Can anybody say hey or ouch or something? So let me make a point right now. The effectiveness, everyone say effectiveness. The effectiveness of this church community and the growth of this church won't come through its events. Depends who you're trying to reach, right? The effectiveness will not come through its events, no matter how good they are. I would say that the events are supplementary. It won't come through your theological strength or even your praise and worship. It won't come through meeting in an incredible building like we meet in every Sunday, even though that's a great servant. The greatest growth and influence of this church will come through the empowerment and the release of the people on the big stage. Are you hearing me? That's fine if you want to clap. Somebody will help you if you do that. That's great. That's where our influence, I believe, will come from. We can make it so much about Sunday. And let me tell you something about Sunday. Sunday was always my default. I love a good event, right? It was always my default. But understanding that we had a misunderstanding of where ministry actually comes from and where it should go. We make it so much about the Sunday. There's a guy called Rick Warren. Anybody heard of Rick Warren? This is a guy who led church in America, Saddleback Church, and he had a congregation of something like 30,000 people, just a few, just a backstreet chapel. And so he's a seasoned leader, and I heard him speak recently, and he said this, an interesting fact that he said, that the greatest component to exponential growth of the church for the first 300 years of church history. Did you get that? Let me give it again. He said that the greatest component to exponential growth of the church for the first 300 years of church history was what? The Sunday morning collective? Praise and worship? Prayer meeting? For all of you shouting no right now, do you know the answer? What do you think? Anybody else? All good thoughts. He actually said that the greatest component that made the church grow for 300 years was hospitality. And what he said was very cheeky, right? And you can do this when you're not leading church anymore. Makes it easier, which is his case, my case. He said, you know what? You should think maybe about having one less event and inviting your neighbor around for a barbecue. Wow. What grew the church? Hospitality. I would say, church, that it's time to release the big stage more than ever before into our community. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 18 says this, Christ has given us, who's us? Us on this big, as you see the big stage? Us on the bigger stage? Who's it speaking to? I believe it's speaking to every disciple of Jesus. And if you're one of those, it's speaking to you as well. So 2 Corinthians 5 verse 18 says that Christ has given us, everyone say us. Everyone say that's me. He's given me the ministry of reconciliation, which basically means bringing people back to God. He's given us that opportunity. He has given us that mandate. Not just on this stage, but on the stage outside. So let me ask you a question. What's your ministry? What's your ministry? Can I give you an idea? Your ministry is tomorrow morning when you put that uniform on for work and turn up on time. Your ministry is when you turn up at the hospital to do your shift. Your ministry is when you turn up at school. Your ministry is when you turn up at the university. Your ministry is for all of you who are parenting children, and that is what you do because we need you to do that. That's your ministry. Understand that all of those things are your ministry. Don't just think that ministry comes from a platform or comes in making something happen within a church gathering. Don't just think those things. Think beyond that. Think that every day you get up with the people that you're with the work that you do. If you work in the factory, your ministry is in the factory. I'm not suggesting that you grab yourself a pulpit and you go and preach in your factory. What I'm saying is you need to learn how to be good news to the people. They're waiting to hear good news. There are so many disillusioned people out there in society, and we need to be good news to them. That is our ministry. So what about this pulpit then? A waste of space then, eh? It's like, why would we do this then? Let me tell you, because Ephesians 4, Bible, New Testament says, Ephesians 4:11, that God has given some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers for what? For the equipping of the saints. Who are the saints? You. For the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry. So what is this? This has a place. The place is so that you are equipped to go out 24/7 and be Jesus to the people in your work, to be Jesus to the people in your business, to be Jesus to the friends that you have at the pub, to be good news to them. And you are equipped. We are equippers. We could say it like this. Could even say this. You are the ministers. We are the administrators. Everybody looks and thinks, oh, you're the ministry. No, you're the ministry. Let's get one thing straight. Let's stop getting it all mixed up and realize that you are the ministers. Turn to someone and say, I'm a minister. Tell them, I am minister of Jesus. And then let me tell you what happens. As we take this focus away from just a Sunday gathering, which of course is really important. But let me tell you what happens when we work this dynamic. This is exactly what happens. Sunday then, the Sunday gathering, it moves from being just a battery charger. You know, some of us use Sunday like a battery charger. All week we're so in decline and it's almost like we crawl in on a Sunday morning and then we hear a great message and we're fine and we're full of God and we're ready to take on the world, and then come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's like we come again on the Sunday and we're ready to go again. Do you know, I think we get it the wrong way around. I don't think that's the way it should be. I don't think that we should use Sunday. I think Sunday moves from being a battery charger for the week to being a celebration of the week. Does that make sense? So as we are ministers of reconciliation to people during the week, we come full of stories, we come full of hope, we've come full of joy, we come full of gladness in the fact of what God has done in us and through us during the week. And you know what? This becomes a massive jamboree. It becomes a massive celebration. It was never meant to be a battery charger. Let me tell you something quickly. We changed our name from service to gathering. You know why? Because service, you take a car for a service, means you're doing all this work on it so that it works better. It's a wrong impression. We gather to celebrate. We gather to honor God for his grace in our life, of how he's used us for the last 6 days. Not to just be a battery charger so that we can make it through the week. Does that make sense? Okay, let me move on quickly to a second point. Another misconception, a misunderstanding I believe that we have of the church, and I had of the church many years ago, is that something I believe that stops us leading like Jesus is the belief that this group of people, have a look round. Have a good look round this morning, because most of you only see the back of people's heads. Have a good look round. That this group of people constitutes the church in this city. That's what we think. We live like it. We plan like it. You know, this is the church now. Thank God it's growing. Thank God it's biggest it's ever been. Thank God for all our church people. Brilliant. But we come and we think that this constitutes the church in the city. And when I say that, I'm not talking about other church communities, okay? I'm not saying that. Saying we think that this constitutes the church in the city. Now, here's the mind-blowing reality that I want to bring to you and I want you to hear. More people belong to this church who are out there this morning than are in here. Did you hear that? More people belong to this church who are out there this morning than you who are already in here. It's what I call the unnamed church. And I need to bring this into land very quickly now, but stick with me for a few minutes. It's what I call the unnamed church. This is what I call the church in waiting. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for good news, guys. They're waiting, like you received good news, they're waiting for good news. In Acts 18, the Apostle Paul turns up in Corinth. And at this time, in Acts 18, there's no church in Corinth. So he turns up on spec, thinking, I'm going to plant a church here. 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians weren't even written. No church exists. And he comes in and he's a bit scared about saying some stuff. You know, after all, they're in Corinth, you know, this incredible city. And God basically says to him that I don't want you to worry about stuff. You need to say what you need to say because I have many people in this city. Does anybody remember reading that? For all of those who are new, that's what it says in Acts 18, verse 10. I have many people. So go and speak the word, Paul, because I have many people in this city. Let me just suggest something or question something. At this point, there was no named church. There was no named church in Corinth. But he's saying here, I have many people in the city, but no church. And I think as church, we love, an observation would be of churches, is that we love to dwell on the named church. We all know, you know, you speak to someone, you find out their name. We are the named church. Does that make sense? But there is an unnamed church. But we love to dwell on the named church. We love to quote Joel chapter 2 where it says, our sons and our daughters will prophesy. Isn't it great to be able to say, oh, Callum. Callum, you know, when he prophesies, oh, it's so God in him. You should hear Callum. Some of you say, well, you should hear Julie. Julie's great at prophesying. God uses it. And thank God for people that we can name, right? Thank God that we can name people. We can name our sons. We know their names, the names of our sons, the name of our daughter that God uses. But I'm drawn to the fact that in Joel 2 and then echoed in Acts chapter 2, that God says, I will pour my spirit on all flesh. Not just the sons and daughters, not just the named church, but the unnamed church. I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Can I suggest that a church that Jesus leads might look like a church that is predominantly here to reach the unnamed church in the city? When we realize that, it changes everything. That is our purpose. That is why we're here. And this new perspective, I believe, back then when I had this revelation, only a revelation of what the Word of God says. Only when I woke up to some of these things, we began to do things differently. Began to see the church that didn't belong yet, that had no name. Not just the ones that did. Sometimes we're so busy trying to deal with the people that do belong, we forget about the ones that don't belong, which is our purpose. It says when we came up with things like, do you know what? The church could care for the church. Don't expect the leaders to come and chase you. You are all disciples of Jesus. If you're hurting, go to your friend in the church. Come on, guys. This is not supposed to be run by a group, the church, by a group of professional ministers. This is about the body of Christ being who they should be to one another. And the whole thinking began to change, and we began to do things differently. This new perspective was a total game changer. This thinking caused me to change, even to the point where we changed the very purpose of the church. I got fed up with didactic church. I got fed up with just preaching stuff and preaching stuff and preaching stuff, and people going home and coming back and hearing the same thing again over and over and over. We wanted to empower and release people into ministry in their day-to-day walk, 24/7 disciples of Jesus Christ. That's what we wanted to do. I believe that this church believes in this. This is the way it's been founded. This is the way that it's led. And we all need to understand what we believe here. And so we changed the very purpose of the church. Our purpose was we existed for ourselves predominantly. That was it. We existed for ourselves. And we changed to existing for those that don't yet belong. And it revolutionized our church. Ticked some people off. Upset many who just wanted to be cared for and prayed for and looked after, and me, and feed me more, make me a fat Christian, not a fit Christian. Oh, where did that come from? And we changed and we moved. And people who didn't like that, do you know what? They went to another church community where they would be loved and cared for and hugged and blessed. Let me tell you, this is not a hospital. Oh. It has a hospital wing for broken people. Hear me. This is not about having no heart for people. It has a hospital wing, but this is an army barracks. If you're not well, we look after you and we help you to get on the front line. This is not about coming to hospital every Sunday and I need more prayer and I need more prayer. Pray for me again. And this time I'll be okay. No. Grow up as a disciple of Jesus Christ. And let me say something. For some people who are broken and need prayer and need help, cool. I understand that. But the only reason we do that is to get you back in the army barracks, to send you out to be the disciple of Jesus in the week, not just on a Sunday. It totally changed our church. I finish with this. Doing didactic church, i.e., we preach, you listen, tell me how to live, that kind of thing. All that does in church, as I've seen over many, many years, not just in this church, but around the world, when I've been to many, many churches. All didactic church does, it creates a dependency culture in the church community. All dependent on the ministry that comes from the little stage. instead of rising to the challenge of being the big stage, not just on a Sunday, but during the week. Does this make sense? A side note here is this, as we get a little bit more savage. If we do not prioritize reaching the ones that don't yet belong, then we will always end up spending most of our time dealing with the petty issues of the ones that do. Ooh. Ooh. And do you know what? When we have issues and we need help, we have friends. That's the idea of a mate. It's an idea. So you know what? Some of you just need to make some friends. Not expect the leadership to come to your whim. Please pray for me. Please, you can say, please pray for me. Why not ask your mate to pray for you? Don't expect someone to come to your house from the ministry team, as you would call them. Don't expect the pastor to come to your house if you're sick. It's not the culture of this church. We're trying to grow disciples, New Testament disciples of Jesus. Not people who are just dependent on, oh, you should come and visit me. Do you know what? I don't want Ben Tarbut to come and visit me if I'm sick. I want a mate. Do you know if I'm sick, well, my mates will ring me. They'll call me and say, how you doing, Dave? I'm not great, mate. Let's go for a coffee. That's my mates. You know who you are. You're my mates. And it's to change. I'm only saying these things, guys, so that we change the mentality and understand that we are the ministers and that when we turn up at work, we are in ministry. One of my friends, he says to me, do you know what, Dave, you preached from that pulpit for years. He said, do you know, I'm in the fire brigade. And when I go on a Monday morning, he says, I'm on ministry. I've just got a different shaped lectern than you. Awesome. Understanding that ministry is not just about here, but it's out there and reaching the unnamed church. I think you've got it, haven't you? I think you understand. I'm going to shut up. Come on, Joy, and lead us. Just 1 second, okay? I want to give people an opportunity. Sorry, Joy. Can we just bow our heads in prayer? I think this is really important. And just as we're in the quietness, church, just in the quietness, pray for people. You know, I kind of understand that there'll be new people here this morning. Do you know what I think? Some of you right now, you know you're here and you know that you're the unnamed church. You know? The unnamed church, you've just turned up on spec, or you're disillusioned with society and you've just turned up because you've like, I need to go and find something. I'm searching, I'm seeking. I want to tell you, God knows your name. You're unnamed to us, but you're named by him. He knows. He's one of the people you've got in the city. He's got in the city. And I would say to you, my friend, whoever you are, maybe numbers of you, maybe families here today, you're the unnamed church. I want to say that it's not this church that you need. It's not just this church that you need. You need to belong to a family, absolutely. But you need to find someone who can save you from yourself. Someone who can save you from the stuff that's going through your head. And you've heard his name so many times this morning. His name's Jesus. This is the one who you need. And I think I just want to give an opportunity right now just to allow you to invite Jesus into your world. You know, you may not know much about Jesus. You may not know anything about the Bible. But you know you're searching and you know you need something and you're here for a reason this morning. You are the unnamed church and today you will become the named church because Jesus knows your name. And if that's you and you're saying, do you know what, Dave? I don't want to embarrass you, by the way. All I want to do is acknowledge you this morning. So if you feel like that and you're saying, do you know what? I want to invite Jesus into my world right now. Would you lift your hand where you are? While everybody's bowed their heads. Just lift your hand where you are. I'll see you and acknowledge you. Thank you so much. Somebody else, thank you. All over this place. Someone else, thank you. Over there. And there, thank you. And here, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I see all your hands. That's amazing. Jesus sees. You can take your hands down. You become the named church. Jesus knows your name. Let me pray. Father, I thank you for every one of these amazing people that have lifted their hand to acknowledge you, Lord. Lord, would you save them now? Would you meet them where they are? Lord, bring understanding. God, let them know that you are with them from this day. Let them mark this date that they said yes to you and they begin to live before you and try to understand you, and you will speak to them and they will speak to you. God, would you start this beautiful journey of grace and relationship in their lives in the name of Christ. And everybody said, amen. Joy's going to come and lead us, and I'm going to say to you, if you lifted your hand this morning and you want help, if you're serious about what you did, then after the gathering or around this time, there is, where it says stories in that back corner, you heard about it before, there's a group of people, like the lady who was on the screen before, who would just say, let's just have a chat, because we want to help you on the next stage. What does that look like? You might have some questions. Why not go and speak to them? Thank you so much for listening to me, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, for that. Would you like to stand? Again, I'll continue to praise God. We invite you, Holy Spirit.